Hi, this is Danny Bolt, and you're listening to the Fulham Focus podcast.
Fulham.
Hello and welcome to the Fulham Focus Premier League podcast. I'm Jmac, your host. Well. You thought defending was poor against Arsenal. Knock yourself out with this shower against Man Bun United. A 7-goal thriller may be, but it is not good enough whatsoever to stay in this league. We need recruits and we need them now. For what fight and passion we had in the last 30 minutes was detrimented by fearful passing and Mr. Blobby discipline for 60 minutes prior. Still lovely to show a good fight against the best team in England to have conceded the same amount of goals as us in 2 games. With me to oven bake these man buns are Matt Dom Perignon and Matthew Stattinger Arter. And away we go.
Fulham.
Right, lads. Leeds' first Prem game at Elland Road for 16 years. Not a new encounter for us, as we've danced this dance before and won many of them. Yet BT had us as though we were playing Inter Milan for some reason this game. But we'll come on to that later. The lineup. Some changes since Arsenal. Adoy as a left centre-back. Kearney dropped for Anguissa. Tet as right-back. Areola in goal. Mitra has been moved to striker instead of Abubakar Kamara. And now AK is on the wing with Cav, the same before. 4-2-3-1. Matt Dom, what were your thoughts of this lineup, mate? And hello.
Hello, mate. Interesting one. I mean, we all thought there was going to be a bit of change because of he didn't go with the new guys against Arsenal. But yeah, it's quite a few changes, wasn't it?
Yeah, you sometimes worry that we're falling into the same trap as last time with making all these changes in the defence. I mean, I know we wanted the guys to nestle in, but yeah, you're just worried that we're going to see a different lineup each week because of this. But I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I mean, on the plus side, Anguissa starting, I think, was the right move. Ream out probably was the right move, but I don't think. I mean, we didn't look any better at the back, did we? With Adoy there, so it just screamed we need some new defenders. Really, that was my first reaction. Happy to see most of the players in the lineup, but yeah, it didn't look good enough in defence really, despite Tete coming in, who was good. We need more players.
Need more players and better shape, better discipline. I got to say, watching Crystal Palace against Man United, I actually almost felt turned on watching 2 banks of 4 again. It was just like, God, look at the discipline and the containment of that. Anyway, Stato, you sort of liked what you saw with the lineup, didn't you? You mentioned it on the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, hello. By the way, I really did like the look of the lineup at first glance. You know, I think it was Morgan in the chat who kind of summed up nicely that last week was the playoffs team, or it was the playoff finals like team's chance to perform at the Premier League, and now this week was kind of our best team. Based on all the players we have, and it wasn't kind of a wholesale amount of changes. It was just a few changes in personnel here and there, and I think there's kind of a basis of what our strongest team could look like. But again, as Dom said, and as you said, the huge emphasis, like looking at that team, was just the defence and the centre backs that we need, or the lack of that we have. Really,
it was just scary seeing Dennis Adoy. I think someone's been saying this on Twitter. If you've got Dennis Adoy in a starting Premier League lineup, and I love Dennis more than anyone, but if you see him in a starting lineup in the Premier League, you've got problems. And for one, he was playing a left centre back in this game, not right centre back as he usually does. He was on the left. It's just a really, really bold move from Parker. Maybe something to actually wake Tony Khan up and get a signing in quicker. Maybe it was a tactical reason for that.
There's kind of a part of me that thinks that maybe Parker did that just to tell Tony, look, we need centre backs. But I think I remember I looked back at the stats of last season, and Adoy, he played centre back about 1 or 2 times, and that was only when people like Mawson and Ream were injured. And he was quite settled at right back last year because the season before, during our horror show in the Premier League, he was a centre back and didn't work out. So it was just a bit confusing that 2 games into our Premier League new season, Parker chooses to revert Adoy back to a centre back, and it was just a bit of an odd move, to be honest.
Well, let's talk about the first big mistake. It was quite quick, really. It was a Costa goal, 5 minutes. We scored a goal in under 10 minutes again. A great hit from him. It was just after a corner. But is this an amazing shot or just terrible defending? It's somewhere in between, possibly, Dom, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a great finish. Can't put any fault at Areola for not getting there because it was right into the top corner off the bar where the keeper can't reach it. But who was supposed to be marking him? I mean, I've watched it back, and I'm sort of thinking Anguissa was perhaps supposed to be on him. I'd have Anguissa probably marking one of the taller defenders, really, because he's a big lad. But no one picked him up, and it's not like he drifted off the pack. He was standing there open as the ball came in. It wasn't like he'd caught a yard on a defender and snuck in behind. He was standing there wide open with about 5 yards of space. Just awful all round. And I think I don't know who it was. I think one of our lads actually got to the ball as well and kind of headed it back to him. So
that's right, yeah.
Just poor all around. It wasn't the most dangerous corner either. It was sort of an outswinger going to around the penalty spot area, which if they'd got a header on target, you'd expect to keep it to save it anyway. Just really poor. I can't take anything away from the finish because it was excellent, but he shouldn't have been given the chance to hit that, really.
Yeah, shouldn't have had that amount of space. I mean, the defensive frailties already in 5 minutes are quite a worry stat. I mean, the goal reminded me, it was a kind of a classic copy of the 18-19 season we had. We actually conceded goals from tight corners like that because of bad marking. I mean, would you put this down to Tet's not being, is it a Tet and Hector communication problem, do you think? Just drifting off too early on?
I don't think this was directly Tete or Hector's fault. It is concerning that we've conceded a goal within the first 10 minutes for the second week in a row. And as you've already mentioned, and it's also concerning that we've conceded from a corner for the second week in a row. I don't want this to be a weakness that is ongoing for the rest of the season. And like you said, the goal, you can't fault the finish. It's a fantastic finish, but it's how we led to that. And you can blame the players, but at the same time, tactically, it looked a bit naive. It looked like we were kind of almost playing this zonal marking, and it kind of backfired because of the zonal marking. It meant that no one was picking up Costa. So when obviously the ball fell to him, there was no one there. You can blame Anguissa because he was the closest man, but he probably just got told to be in that zone because that's the way we set up, and it just hasn't worked well. And it just wasn't the ideal start at all.
It felt like there were zonal markings all over the place, actually. Just no one was really sort of keeping to a man. It was really, really odd. I remember one point.
But the zone, sorry, mate. I was saying the zone seemed to be the 6 yard box only. That's where all of our players were standing. So, I mean, how much does the football fans talk about zonal marking and how much they don't like it? But the zone is surely the box, and it's not just a 6 yard. The 6 yard box should be the keeper's area. That's his zone, and then just they're all standing around in a heap. I can't work out what they were doing.
Oh, and then you need to question if you're doing zonal marking, and then you see a player like Helder Costa not within kind of the zone or within the area that you're doing zonal marking. At what point, then, as a player, do you have to question? Well, should we mark him up, or should we kind of stick to our guns? And if that's the case, then it's just not going to work out. And it was just a bit of a shit show all around, really.
It was a shit show all around. And I think, before we get on to the penalty from Mitro and Joe Bryan becoming hero to zero, I just want to say that the passing was so bad up until the 34th minute where we scored a penalty. We looked almost terrified and rattled. It was like, do you think there's an argument that we were playing to Leeds' tempo too much in this game too early, Dom? Like they actually caused us to sort of into a rhythm we weren't comfortable with. Is something like that potentially?
I've got no idea. It wasn't working. I mean, I think conceding early on is just about the worst thing for the way we play, because you look at some of our good wins when we went up the last couple of months of the season, we were often 0-0 at half time, and then we start to play in the second half and win it from there. But when you're 1-0 down inside 5 minutes, pretty much in both games, I can't remember when the Aubameyang was. I think it was inside 5 minutes as well. Not the Aubameyang, the Arsenal one. It's uphill for the way we play. We want to slow the tempo down and we want to stifle the other team, but they're all of a sudden on a high from their early goal, and we couldn't really keep up with them until we eventually started to around 25-30 minutes.
I have to say though, I don't think that Leeds played particularly well. Like they won't 1-0 up, sure, but it was just a bit of a scrappy game. Like they weren't really stringing passes together. We weren't doing anything. It was just a bit of just a meh game. Like it was two championship sides playing in the Premier League against each other, and it wasn't until we made it 1-1 that the tempo kind of picks up a bit.
And that was the Mitro penalty at 34 minutes, which we'll talk about now. That was quite nice. Is I saw a screen cap today on Twitter. Joe Bryan smiling as soon as he had won it. It was quite cheeky. I enjoyed seeing that. Clear penalty, obviously. I mean, I don't know what Cock is thinking there. I mean, that's definitely. I mean, that is 100% a penalty, isn't it, Dom?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't do that. It's even if it wasn't the strongest contact, and Joe Bryan sort of took a few seconds to go down. He's made contact, he's slid, and he's got nowhere near the ball. You have to give that as a pen, and they looked at it and realised there was no mistake. So yeah, fair play, and definite penalty for me.
Definite penalty for you. What would you say about the penalty for Leeds that happened immediately afterwards that Joe Bryan conceded for us, Mr. Statto? Bit soft?
It was a bit soft, but it was definitely a penalty. On reflection, looking at VAR, looking at the replay, he clearly pushed Bamford, and it was unnecessary because you look at the cross. I don't think Bamford was getting there anyway. There was no need for him to do that. And then if we going back a few seconds as well, how Leeds got across like that, it was very sloppy as well. Like they did one throw to the man in the middle who had all the space and all the time in the world, and they just played out wide and they got the cross in, and then boom, we put ourselves in a position like this where we can see the penalty, and it was just very avoidable.
It's just terrible. It was so bad. And I thought, just when you thought we could actually get an equaliser, something like that happens, and it's all, we're going up a very steep mountain again. I mean, just one of the worst halves I've seen us play, actually. I remember at one point I saw Hector just pass it to absolutely no one off the side. It was terrible. I mean, at half-time, we were saying, the wingers need to be changed around. And a lot of us were saying that Onoma was a bit too slow. I mean, Onoma a bit off the pace in this game, do you think, Matt Dunn?
Yeah, definitely. He's been off the pace in both games so far. It's tough because start of last season, he was playing most games, and a lot of us thought he wasn't up to it. And we all then gave Scott Parker a lot of credit for sticking with him, and because he clearly improved and became one of our most important players at the end of the season. It's the same story again. It's a huge step up. He hopefully will learn really quick, but he's not up to the pace. He looks slow, which was weird because he seemed quite fast in the Championship. It might just be that the standard is just so much higher. But then we played Leeds last season, so it's tough. I don't think it's working where he plays either as the number 10. It kind of I've never really liked it, even though he's had some good games there. I think we've got better options in midfield at the moment, and we need to go with that.
Yeah, I mean, slow off the pace, but still some very impressive footwork from him, but just a bit too laboured in this game. What are your thoughts on this, Statto? I mean, if you've got any thoughts about on a number 10 situation that we could, if that is the right position for Onoma right now?
Yeah, definitely. So, if we were to stick with this kind of 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, whatever you want to call it, kind of formation, Onoma, he's not really up to scratch at the moment. That's not to say that he ever will be, but, we can't keep playing him if he's playing poorly. And, you look at that position, that number 10, and you wonder who in our squad can currently fill it. And, you obviously look at players like Tom Kearney, but although, he seems to have lost a yard of pace now. And also Bobby Decordova-Reid, who we'll get onto because he had quite a good performance in the second half. But, I also think that kind of, if we stick with this 4-3-3 formation, that, this number 10 role is going to be pivotal for us because, in the group chat at half-time for the rest of the game, and, just on Fulham Twitter and all the social medias, everyone talked about how our wingers just aren't good enough. Cavallero and Kamara didn't necessarily have a good game. Awful. And there's a lot of, and there's kind of a lot of question marks around whether our wingers are up to Premier League scratch. And, at the moment, the general consensus is no, they're not. But I wonder if we could get a top quality, number 10 midfielder in who can kind of create that bit of quality and, create these chances that he could almost kind of help the wingers, perform a lot better because, at the moment they're not really getting the service that they need to be able to perform. They're kind of feeding off scraps from Anguissa and and Reed. But if we kind of had that playmaker there who could kind of help set them up, then that could help our current crop of wingers, be a lot better than what they currently are.
Well, let's talk about another playmaker, but one on the Leeds side. This is Klitsch, who provides further heroics for Leeds after the penalty. Now, there is no pressure on him in the middle of the pitch whatsoever, and Geese and Reed look mixed up here. This is the 50th minute goal, the through ball to Patrick Bamford. It's a lovely through ball, but it's too easy. It gets between Tet and Hector far too easily for this one. I mean, Hector needs to be doing so much better here. His communication with Tete, at least. I mean, what's happened to Hector in these past 2 games, Domm? I just don't understand what's going on with him. I feel like maybe getting rid of Tin Ream has actually made him worse. I don't know if he needs someone a better counteract.
I don't know. I think it's weird. In the Championship, he was dominant and kind of that. He was that sort of ball winning centre back, and he'd get to the ball first, and he'd beat strikers in the air. And he's sort of trying to do the same thing, but all of a sudden, the other players are much better and much faster and getting to the ball first. And he's finding himself on the right wing and almost at the halfway line getting beaten to the ball, and not necessarily for this goal, but he needs. I don't know. There seems to be a big gap when teams break through us. There's the gap between the centre back and the full back, and there's also a gap in front of them, and he doesn't seem to be sure where he's supposed to be picking up. He's trying to win the ball and he's getting turned, and he needs to kind of sort it out and just sort of be calm again, because that's when he was great for us last season. He was just cool, calm, collected, and he's not showing any of those things this time. It's weird. It's obviously a big step up, as we've said, but it's worrying because he's supposed to be the good centre back.
Yeah, and that's I'll pass this on to you now, Statto. I mean, it's not the greatest feeling arriving in the Premier League, then realising that both your centre backs aren't up to it, particularly the one that was good last season.
Yeah, it's a bit worrying that I suppose your best centre back is kind of having a bit of a wobbly patch. And it's funny, I said when Hector first came in last season, I mentioned on the pod that he was kind of this alpha centre back, and what I mean by that is all the successful centre back pairings that have ever existed. So Hangland and Hughes, for example, Hangland was kind of this alpha dominant centre back, and Hughes was kind of the one who did what Hangland told him to do, and it was a very successful partnership. And you can look at all the other types of partnerships that exist for that. The Ferdinands and Vidics, the Van Dijks and Joe Gomez's and whatnot. And that's what Hector was for us in the Championship, and it was great. But now we're in the Premier League, and we're 2 games in, and Hector's looking a bit worrying and a bit dodgy. So you wonder whether now he's no longer this kind of alpha centre back, and we kind of need to get this kind of new alpha centre back in that can go next to Hector, because we know that Hector's a perfectly competent centre back, but if we could get this kind of big, dominant, almost Premier League experienced centre back in that can kind of help Hector and form a good partnership with him, then that could be the answer for us. But in the meantime, it's very worrying.
Well, this continue the thought of very worrying. Costa again in the 57th minute. I mean, this is 4-1 and it seemed game over at this point. In my opinion, this is the circus, like the worst defending. Yeah, I mean, Odoi is in a right back position. All the defenders only marking Jack Harrison. I think Costa, Klitsch, and maybe Phillips. I'm not sure if it's Phillips. They're all man buns to me now, but completely just free, all open in the danger zone. Three players, just free to roam. I think there was, like I said, there was a point where 3 Fulham players were marking just one. And it was the same here. Just going straight back to you on this stat. I mean, this was weird. Like, I mean, I don't understand. I've never seen zonal marking done so badly in my life here.
I don't even know if it was zonal marking. It just seemed heads all over the place. Like Hector was winning a ball up in that right mid spot, and then Odoi was running at the right back, and he's meant to be the left centre back, and it was just all over the place. And it was almost reminiscent of the goal that Leeds scored last season after the restart when they went 3-0 up, when they kind of just put that low cross ahead, and then like Ream missed it and Brian missed it, and then they just tucked it. It was almost similar to that, really, because it was just calamitous all over the place. And again, like I said, more just very worrying stuff, and this cannot continue if we want to try and stay in the Premier League.
Yeah, it was kind of, at that point, it's sort of defending as if we were playing 8 up front and we were caught out with no one in defence. But we weren't throwing everything forward at that point. We still had our defenders back. It's just they didn't know what to do. And they did know what to do about a month and a half ago. So yeah, it's strange. It's strange. The one thing for me is it's only Leeds and they scored 4 against us, and 4 simple goals really. That all were avoidable if we're honest. And we've got City and Liverpool and Man United in this league, and Arsenal who we've already played. they need to work it out very quickly.
And let's go on. So the double substitution, this sort of changes the game now. Something that Scott Parker said in his post-match commentary was just how this time 2 years ago it would have been probably 6 or 7-1, but we just showed a bit of character here and some really astute substitutions from Scott Parker to see the problems. And he takes off Onuma and takes off AK-47 and brings on Bobby Reid and Cabana. Now this suddenly changes things quite a lot. And first of all, we then have this beautiful assist from Andre Frank Zamboa-Guisa to Bobby Reid. And it's Bobby Reid's first, it's not his first Premier League goal, but his first goal for us in the Premier League. Talk me through it, Mr. Statto.
Yeah, I think that was kind of one of the first times in a long time we've seen a midfielder thread a nice through ball like that to one of our attackers. You know, a lot of our goals last season just came from crossing it into Mitro or pot shots from Knockaert and Cavallero. And, it's kind of really refreshing just to see a nice kind of direct through ball into the area and for Bobby Reid to get that space and to finish. And, to his credit, Bobby comes under a lot of flack from us fans. We say he's not good enough and we say he just has too many chances and doesn't perform. But, in his defence, he plays all over the place. And yesterday was kind of a rare example of where I think he's playing in his strongest position. He was almost playing off Mitrovic. He was playing off the striker, almost as an advanced number 10. And we, in his defence, last season we saw him out wide. We saw him in midfield. We saw him alongside Kearney, which, didn't really work. But, when you have him as that number 10 with kind of more defence-minded midfielders like Anguissa and Reid playing behind him, he was kind of almost allowed to flourish and, be more creative and make those advanced runs. So it was a good game from him. And if he can keep that up, I think, he could actually be quite a useful asset to us in the Premier League.
Yeah, I agree with the kind of playing a more advanced midfielder. We discussed earlier that we don't know who our creative number 10 is. Tom Kearney doesn't play directly enough. Josh Onuma seems to be off the pace at the moment, and I'm not sure he's that player anyway. Why don't we get rid of that position and put that position up front instead? Because we've got Bobby Reid, who I think we all agree that's probably his best position, playing off the striker. He hasn't played there a lot. We've got AK-47 as well, who could do that job. So it might be worth trying that, and then have the 3 midfielders as Anguissa and Lamina and Reid, who are full of running, a lot of energy, can win the ball in midfield, and as we saw from Anguissa, potentially create goals with the through balls as well.
He also gave basically before Mitrovic's 64th goal, he gave him a really nice through ball. And Mitrovic unfortunately missed it, but then it goes to Tete, and Tete gives a wonderful cross, and we've scored another, and it's 4-3. We actually were getting really excited at this point. But look, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the hero we never asked for. Let's talk about Andre Frank Zamboa-Guisa. He is, according to everyone, and I see it myself, he is, without a doubt, our best player on the pitch at the moment. Some people are saying that he is probably the better player on both sides, or better than any Leeds player as well. And I would just like to hear your song for him, Matt Domm, because there is an argument in my head where I've always just thought, it's very hard for me to. I've been let down before with this. We all have, and I remember Michael Seri playing amazingly in the first few games in the Premier League 18-19, and I think that's where my worry, my slight bitterness and fear is coming from, because I'm as long as the team loses and plays badly, I still struggle to find an individual performance that I really like, but Anguissa looks like a different type of gravy altogether, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Frank has been unfairly linked with Seri. Seri obviously doesn't want to play for the club anymore. He lost interest after a month, and he was no good for the rest of the season. Instantly went on loan. I know Anguissa did as well, but you look at Anguissa and he seems like he's up for it. It seems like he's happy to play for us because he plays well. I think it was the club's decision to loan him out last season, and we've, by all accounts, rejected some fairly decent bids for him. So yeah, I don't think you can compare the two. I think Anguissa is much more of a professional player and the one we want out of the two of them. And I think apart from Helder Costa, he was the best player on the pitch against Leeds. It's weird saying that because he sort of plays in defensive midfield role and we conceded 4. But I don't think you can realistically blame him, even though I did earlier. You can't realistically blame him for any of the goals. You look at some of his stats against Leeds, he had the most touches of any of our players with 84. He created the most chances from that deep midfield position. He had completed more dribbles, which is 7 than any other player. Second highest tackles, third highest interceptions, 88% passing accuracy, and an assist. You can't ask for any more than that. It's not his fault that the rest of the players didn't play to that level, because if they did, we'd have won that easily. And he very nearly, his performance was very nearly enough to get a point, which I think we probably deserved all in all, apart from those errors, and the timing of the goals is what did it for us. But we were well worthy of a point, I think. And he was immense.
Statto, sing me the ballad of Anguissa quickly. And also just the goals that we scored in a short amount of time to make it 4-3. There are positives there. There is hope that actually at least we can score goals in this league. And Mitro is now finally up and running. There are some positives to take as well, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, we can be positive. I mean, the cynic in me, and the one who's, there's part of me that thinks that we only scored those 2 goals because Leeds were 4-1 up and they switched off, and we kind of gave them a go. But we still scored 2, we still made it 4-3, and we still gave it a good go. And I think it's encouraging to see that when we do actually try to attack and we don't play this cautious Parker ball, and we get the ball into the box, things do happen. Mitrovic, if you feed him more, he will score, and if we get other players into the box, things will happen. I was watching all the other Premier League games yesterday and on Sunday, and most clubs, when they get chances in the box, you get 3 or 4 players in the box, and law of averages, things will happen. But for us in the Leeds game and definitely the Arsenal game, Mitrovic this week and Kamara last week, they were so isolated, and they were the only ones in the box at any time. So, if we can try and get more players into the box, we've got enough skill and enough talent there for things to go our way and for us to score the goals. And, it was encouraging to see that we got it back to 4-3, and it was encouraging to see that Anguissa had a good game. Just going back to Anguissa quickly, I like that parallel you had with Seri in the sense that Seri had a good first few games for us and he looked great, but his motivation went very quickly because we turned bad very quickly. So if you're Anguissa right now, he has a great game like he did yesterday, but then he looks behind him and he looks at the defence, and we're shipping 4 goals, and then we're looking at that nonsensical attack, and
this is what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I get that, because it's probably him thinking like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I'm better than this. I deserve better than this. Why am I going through this kind of shit that I went through 2 seasons ago? And that's understandable for him. And the only way we can kind of fix that is by getting a few more quality players in, and for a lot of our current players to kind of step up and almost take the burden off his shoulders a bit, and just be a top quality team rather than relying on these top quality individuals.
Yeah. And just quickly, before we move on to Parker ratings and stuff, Areola's Prem debut here, we conceded 4 goals this game, but would you say all of them are just unstoppable? Or, I mean, I'm not saying that actually suggesting they're actually unstoppable, but you know what I mean? Was Areola, would you still keep him for the next game at Domm?
Yeah, I think so. It's weird to say that your keeper had a good game when you've lost 4-3, but realistically, I don't think he could have saved any of them. He was let down badly by the 4 defenders in front of him. And I can't remember what the score was. I think it might have been when we were 4-3 down. He made a really good double save, dived low to his left and then the other side to keep out the rebound. He came out and punched a lot, which, as we all know, those foreign keepers like to do.
Echoes of Rico,
but unlike Rico and Fabry, he made contact with the ball, so that's an upgrade there.
Sure.
I like what I see. He likes to have the ball at his feet. He comes out of his box. He commands his area. I think he's a good keeper, and I think he's an upgrade on Rodak, which is harsh, but we need the best man for the job, and I think it's probably him.
Definitely, and it's quite funny for Ariola. Like last year, he was at Real Madrid, so he would have had Sergio Ramos and Rafael Varane in front of him. And the year before, he was at PSG, so Thiago Silva and Marquinhos. And yesterday he had Hector and Odoi, which it's quite the change. But he had a decent debut, and I think all of our new signings kind of performed well yesterday. Tete had a good game. Anguissa, if you want to count him as a new signing, technically he was fine. Lamina, when he came on, he did nothing wrong or nothing right. He was okay, but he kind of came on late on. So the new signings, they've started well, but it's kind of the old habits from the 2 seasons ago that kind of cost us the game, and we need to stamp that out quickly.
Old habits die hard as well. And we'll just before we get onto the parking ratings, I just want to talk about another old habit. I just want to have a little rant with you here, and I think you're all going to agree. So, the media at the moment was quite unbelievable in BT Sport, wasn't it? I mean, Chris Sutton, Fulham are down already, and this is before we even kick the ball. You've got Darren Bent, Savage talking absolute nonsense. You've got Southampton, who have lost 2 games now, and he says, they'll be all right, but we've lost 2 games and we're going down instantly. Match of the day showing hardly any of our good bits. We conceded the same amount as Leeds, but we're going down completely different to what they're doing. Bielsa on the sideline, mythical, magical. I mean, he's not the bloody Loch Ness monster. I just don't really understand why that we are media boogeymen once again, it seems. Wouldn't you agree about them? Disgusting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's silly. I think in this case it's more everyone for some reason is in love with Leeds. They're forgetting when they went down. When was it? 18 years ago or something like that. They're forgetting how much everyone hated them, which is a funny odd thing. And they deserve to be Bielsa's a genius and all that stuff. Fine, he's a great manager. Sure, he sits on a bucket for the whole game, but what magicians don't do that. It's funny. I think in this case it's more to do with Leeds, the Leeds loving than hating Fulham. All I can say is I'm really looking forward to the Jmac dramatic music reading out all the comments at the end of the season pod when we finish 17th. Yeah. That will make all of it worth it.
Oh, it'll be great. It'll be so good. Statto, your thoughts on the absolute shower of stuff that people were saying on the commentary, at least?
Yeah, it was a bit irritating because everyone seems to love Leeds, and you know what? Fair enough that they've been away for 18 years and they're a big team, and they need to be back in the Premier League, and yeah, that's fine and all. But don't treat us like we're just kind of this yo-yo team who are lucky to be here, because we're not. And it kind of annoys me that people just assume we are this yo-yo team. Sure, we got relegated and we got promoted. In the space of 3 seasons, back to we down, up, down, up, down, up, but people are forgetting that we were an established Premier League team for 13 years or so. We're not in the same vein as teams like Norwich and West Brom, who are proper yo-yo clubs. We're not like that. I mean, sure, we could be if we go down and back up again, in the next 2 or 3 seasons or so. But at the moment, we're not, and it's just a bit annoying that people are just writing us off straight away just because we're the playoff team. They came up. We spent 100 million this time round.
Yeah, people just need to educate themselves a bit better, in my opinion. Yeah. If you look at the all-time Premier League table, we're 17th. I know that's not. I mean, that's just above safety. If there was relegation, but
we'll take it. We'll take it.
We'll take it. I mean, I think people need to really just show a bit more respect. But that's just anyway. They're getting to me, so I'm gonna leave it. Let's have your Parker rating, Mr. Domm.
Oh, that's really difficult. really difficult.
Yeah, because you got the subs that you made, which are good, but you've got the defense, which is absolute cack. So that is tricky, isn't it?
I'm pinning more of this on the fact that we haven't brought in a defender, having got rid of Alfie Mawson, who, fair enough, might not be Premier League standard, but he's a body, and he's probably our second best centre back if he was at the club. Basing it on more the fact that we haven't got a proper defender. A 7. I think is maybe a generous 7.
That is generous.
But I think he saw that Onuma wasn't working, took him off, and brought Bobby on, who played a much more direct role, and that turned things around. Obviously, we were 4-1 down at that point. So
still, no, like you say, I know what you're saying, and the comments that you made, there was fighting spirit there. I know, like as Statto said, the cynical part of us knows that Leeds might have dropped off because they were 4-1 up. But Statto, what are your thoughts? What would you give Parker for this? I think I'm going to just quickly say that I'm on maybe a 5.5, 6 here. What about you?
Yeah, it is a difficult one. Like Dom said, it's not his fault. We have no centre backs available, and it's kind of annoying that we never once got to see Hector and Mawson as a partnership, because that could have been quite good, but we'll never see that now, or not at least until next season potentially. And the fact that Dennis Odoi is still a Premier League centre back for us is criminal, frankly, and that's not entirely Parker's fault. It's the fault of the recruitment team for not getting another centre back in.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, we didn't have to play Odoi there. But then, is Ream any better? Is Lamarchand any better? We don't know. They're kind of all the same averagey championship at best centre back level players. So yeah, that's not exactly his fault. He made some good changes. He was, I was impressed that he's not afraid to drop players like Ream and Kearney in the Premier League. He has no room for this kind of sentimental approach, which is good.
Yeah, that's good.
The whole zonal marking thing, you kind of do have to pin on him because, he is the manager, he does these tactics. So yeah, I think kind of a 5.5. I'd say more towards a 6, I'd say. Did a few right things, did a lot of wrong things. But we're only 2 games in, and there's still a long way to go.
A long way to go indeed.
I think just to justify my 7, because listening to you both, I think I've been a little generous. It's because I think we were well worth a point overall. If it wasn't for those, obviously we're going to say this all season, if it wasn't for those 4 defensive cock-ups that led to goals, but those weren't his fault, I don't think. I'm not sure our markings only because we haven't been before, so I don't see why we'd start doing it now. I think that was just a weird bit of defending by them, because I think on another day Leeds don't score all their chances and we win it. So I think it's a bit harsh to pin the result on him, because I didn't see that he did a lot wrong.
Okay, well, I mean, look, the next game actually is Sheffield Wednesday, Carabao Cup. That's on Wednesday, as I just said. But we've got Aston Villa coming up. We're going to have a preview show with Frenchie, so we're not going to talk about it too much. But I just would like to get your thoughts. We've been linked with Marlon. Help me out. What's his last name?
Just Marlon.
It's just Marlon.
Is it Marlon? I can't remember.
It's like Marlon Santos, I think. Marlon Santos from Serie A. A centre-back who hasn't got the best reviews, to be honest, but he plays in a back 3. And I'm just starting to think if now Parker's shopping for a back 3, 3 centre-backs, and this might be the way going forward. And I'd just like to know what your thoughts are. Oh, another thing I'd like to ask you as well on top of that is, this was a championship game and we still lost. It's not good. Arsenal, Leeds and Villa, I would have liked 4 points from that. And now Villa, we've got none, obviously. So now I think with Villa, if we get 3, that would be great. And I'd just like to know your thoughts on what I've just said and with how many points you would have liked and etc. Done.
The back 3 thing first. I think for quite a while we've had the players to do that. At the moment, I think we need 3 centre backs in order to play 3 centre backs, because we've
maybe
got
2. Yeah, like we could maybe throw it.
at least 2.
We could throw in Hector, maybe, or like you definitely throw in Hector
because we've got Hector and Ream and Le Marchand. They're the only 3 you can actually call centre backs, and 2 of those I don't think should be starting in the Premier League. I think it would work for us because we could then do what we've discussed, have 2 up front and still have 3 in midfield with some width from marauding fullbacks. We know Joe Bryan likes to get forward, and we've seen Tete is really useful because he's set Mitchell up 2 headers in 2 games. It would work, I think, but we need some good quality centre backs, because for teams who play it like Brighton, for example, they're absolutely stacked with defenders. They've got some of the best outside the top 6, I would argue, and it works for them because they're units and they've got a really strong defence. So just playing 3 for the sake of having more defenders is not necessarily the answer. They need to be good as well. And what was your other question? I've forgotten now.
Well, I mean, how many points would you have taken out of these 3 games? Do you now see that Villa is probably like huge in the sense of we need points? We need points.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's must win, but at the same time, we must beat the other teams who are expected to be challenging us for relegation or fighting against us for relegation. We need to be beating those at home. It's simple as that. And with our not playing anyone in the top 6 for the first couple of months start, we need to get a big chunk of points in that time. Otherwise, we're going to start to struggle. So it's not must win, but we really, really need to start thinking about winning. And it's Villa at home is a good one to aim for.
And what would you do at Villa at home, Statto? How would you see this out?
So yeah, as Dom mentioned, I don't think it's a game that we need to win. We need to be looking to win all the games against teams like this. But I don't think we should panic if we don't, because we still don't have the defenders that we need. And even if we get them this week, there's no guarantee that they'll perform and they'll make our team better instantly. It's a process. You buy a defender and you integrate them into the team. Yeah. You get them playing the way that we like to play and understand the kind of different types of passing patterns that we like to do. So, even against Villa, if we lose, I wouldn't be too upset. I'd be upset if we concede another minimum of 3 goals again, because we've conceded 7 goals in 2 games so far, which is awful. So if we can keep conceding goals to a minimum at least on next Monday, then that will be a good thing. And yeah, I think it all depends on who we kind of get in. Marlon was just one of many centre backs I've seen we've been linked with in the past few days. There's Congolo, Jonathan Tah, Gleeson Bremer, the guy from Basel, Alderweireld, that's the one. Okay. And the thing is, what I've noticed actually in the Premier League is centre backs. There's a big shortage of good quality centre backs going around at the moment. You look at the team that Burnley put out on Sunday today, and they haven't got Tarkowski or me, so they're playing Kevin Long and some randomer. Likewise, they're playing Leicester, who haven't to play their defensive midfielder Wilfred Ndidi at centre back. Liverpool had to play Fabinho at centre back today, and there's actually it's a kind of a trend that good quality centre backs are in short supply at the moment, because the way the game's evolving of such this high pressing attacking game, high quality attackers are outnumbering the amount of centre backs that exist. So it's going to be difficult to get those centre backs in and to kind of get a set of defenders that can help us survive in the Premier League. So I believe we will get some defenders in, but it may take time. We've still got 3 weeks of the transfer window left. And yeah, it's just kind of one of those unfortunate things where we've got promoted in a season where everything is so kind of compressed and condensed down. We had a 4-week pre-season, and now we've already played the season and we're still getting players in. So yeah, it's going to be a big task from Parker to try and get those players in, get them integrated in the team and sort out our best team and get us playing quickly.
Well, hopefully we'll see a couple of new people by this time of Villa, but maybe not integrated just yet. But there is time, like you said. There is always time. There is always hope, and I'm not pressing the Fulham a down button like some wanker pundits are doing at the moment.
I only want to add, though, we have got time, obviously, to get centre back in, but it's been 2 years. We've had 2 years. This time last season, we were saying Tim Ream, Dennis Adoy isn't a centre back pairing that's going to keep us up. And here we are. Tim Ream starts the first game. Dennis Adoy starts the second game at centre back. Lo and behold, 2 years older, they're still not good enough. So I think, obviously, we've got time and we need to do it, but it's not given Scott Parker a lot of time to get ready for the season because he hasn't got a complete squad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Scott Parker speaks very well after the games, but I'm pretty sure he was bloody livid after that performance, and I think he's definitely really had an angry phone call with Tony Khan to get things moving a lot more swifter. That might be actually why we were so, this deal for Marlon's being wrapped up so quickly after the game. I think he's just definitely set a fire under Tony Khan. Hopefully. Anyway,
taking a day off watching wrestling, and he's making some phone calls. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, don't be that guy, but yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm not that guy, but you know.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Well, look, thank you very much to my lovely co-host for joining me and talking about all this. Thank you for listening at home. We will be back. We will be back with a preview show of Aston Villa, where Frenchie shall be talking all about Aston Villa, what we can expect, and potential lineups, and all that may entail. Thank you for listening.